Welcome to another Sunday morning edition of Adult Sunday School class. I'm John McMath. We've been working our way slowly and painfully through the background and archaeology and other interesting stuff in Joshua Judges. Today we'll finally get into some of the stories that are the core of the book of Judges. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to say. We'll work through there, and I'll show you some of the background as we go along, but it is what it is. We left off in chapter 2, and I was introducing the Judges cycle. This thing we did last week, where let's see, Okay, the people of Israel sinned, and then they were subjugated. They cried out to God, and so he sent them a deliverer. Okay, and I've seen this done with alliteration, with the variety of first letters. It doesn't really matter. But what we see in each of these sequences is the people of Israel, whichever particular group it was, did the evil thing, serving the Baals. Okay, 2:11 is a good example of that. The sons of Israel did literally the evil thing in the sight of the Lord, and they served the Baals. You know, two notes on that verse, just so we've got it straight. To do the particular evil thing, not just doing evil in general, but the particular evil thing, is usually understood by the commentaries, and I think they're probably right, to be a reference to the sexual perversion that goes with the Canaanite worship. And Donna, I'm going to have you come all the way over here with that coffee, because otherwise I get out of the thing. I don't know what happens if I transgress the rule of the frame. So, as I've said, the Canaanite worship was very attractive, particularly to the younger generations coming up in Israel. It was flashy. It looked like it might be fun. It involved lots of drinking and sex and big parties, and that was worship. And it was fully acceptable in the Canaanite culture, and so there was this social pressure to be a part of the fun. And it doesn't surprise me very much. I understand human nature well enough to recognize that when that's available, there's going to be a certain percentage who will just fall into it. That's the way it goes. And so the people of Israel went off and did this thing. They began to serve the Baals. Now, that's an interesting thing. It's there's no textual problem there. It's a plural in all of our manuscripts. It's not a problem, but it is a problem because when we study the Canaanite religion, it's really pretty explicit. There's one Baal who is the son of El. El is the generic term for God. So El has retired young and gone off to do fly fishing or something on a mountaintop. I don't know what El is doing. And I'm not going to start a rabbit trail on my own. You have to ask. There's a whole train of thought, train of argument and research that's been going on for a couple of hundred years that I know of about the history of monotheism prior to Moses. El is very likely a fragment of some earlier monotheistic belief. So Melchizedek was monotheistic prior to Moses. Okay, so there's not a problem there. We know that Adam was monotheistic, so was Noah. Why? Well, because they talked to the one God that morning. That's how they know. So we know there was monotheism. And in a whole bunch of places, we find a kind of degradation of that monotheistic practices. We'll find one great sky god kind of a character. In modern anthropology, missions anthropology, we often use that to our advantage. Margaret Mead, the atheist anthropologist, studied the Polynesian people groups, and she'd always ask them, who are your gods? Once she had enough of the language to be able to do it. And they'd always give her a list, that big palm tree, the sun in the sky, the big wave that comes over that rock right over there, those are our gods. And she never asked the obvious question, which later on missionaries who went into the same areas began to ask, which was, yes, but who made all of your gods? And those same peoples, the same people groups, gave the answer, oh, you mean, and they give it a name. And the story is always, he created all these other gods, and then he retired to an island that we've never found, or he lives in the clouds, or he's gone off on a long journey. Where's he been? Well, we don't know. But he's the one who created all of the rest. Missionaries for nigh on 75 years now have been able to go into those kinds of people groups and ask those kinds of questions and say, would you mind if we introduced you to that God who's been gone for so long, because I represent him. Immediately doors open, and it's great fun. If you'd like to follow up that particular rabbit trail, it's Richardson. What's his first name? Don Richardson, yeah. Everything Don Richardson has written is worth reading. We're not always going to agree about everything, but Don Richardson is absolutely way up at the top of my list of authors to whom we must always listen. And his discussions of that kind of thing just absolutely wonderful. So Baal worship, a kind of fertility worship, is a degradation from an original monotheism, probably. And very likely, none of the perverted followers of the Baals by biblical times had any notion that that was true, and would not have responded well, at any rate. So there's one Baal who is the son of El. El, the creator, created all of the gods. And El has a couple of enemies and a bunch of friends. So he's in charge of primarily fertility as caused by the rain. And so he was responsible to make sure that the rain came in the appropriate parts of the year and that the cycle continued. And Baal had several enemies, most important among them, Yam, the sea, or the chaos monster, and Mot, death. Okay, so, and those are both a couple of gods. And every year, Baal would go through this cycle of fighting against Mot and Yam. He'd fight, and then he'd get killed. And that's the time of the year when all of the grass gets brown and the rain stops coming. and everybody needs to get to work at their religion to make sure that Baal is brought back to life again, and that the fertility of the earth returns. So the worship, if you can call it that, what archaeologists like to call the cult, the stuff that Canaanites did was designed to imitate the actions that they wanted the gods and goddesses to take. I mean, wake up, let's have a party, get really drunk, and then go find us some girl-type gods and do the appropriate things in order to emphasize the fertility. So people would make sacrifices for meat. They'd make sacrifices to get some wine or strong drink. They'd hire as many of the Canaanite prostitutes as they could afford in order to ensure the fertility of the land. And there are a bunch of others. There's so many gods and goddesses in the whole thing. I'll show you some pictures in a bit. Have I got pictures here? Yeah, I do. I've shown you this one before. This was found at Lachish. This is Ishtar or Ashtart. She has a variety of other names, usually female, sometimes male. Everybody thinks, oh, this is a modern thing, but some perversions never go away. This particular one found at Lachish in the Judean Shpela, and is a magnificent piece of workmanship, even though it is pornographic. It's the goldsmithing is amazing. It's a priceless piece. I wouldn't want it on my wall, but it's an amazing thing. There are a variety of Canaanite gods of the underworld. This one, I'm not even sure which one this is. Molech is the usual term. This is a god of the underworld. He takes care of the dead. And in order to keep too many from dying, he required the sacrifices of usually infants. So Molech is the god of the death of children. In the Old Testament, King James Version used to, I can never get this out of my mind. It says, and the Israelites caused their sons to pass through the fire. That's the worship of this guy. He had in front of him a big brass pan, and newborn babies were thrown into that pan over a roaring fire, so that the death was not only obviously fatal, but also extraordinarily painful. And this was the worship of that particular god. And so you think of it, the Canaanites are just an alternative lifestyle. Well, sort of. This is Anet, one of the Canaanite goddesses, who's in charge of war and love. And this one is also sometimes male, sometimes female. And in the literature, and you can never tell for sure without looking at the case endings. It's kind of it's weird, but they were all over the place. And when we dig over there, I've never found an idol myself, but the archaeologists who do this publish voluminously all of these pictures. So the canonical Baal story has an L, Baal, Ishtar, Asherah, Molech, a variety of other minor gods, 800 or 900 minor gods. Okay, I get it. So there's one Baal, but this says Baals. That's not part of the official, or what we call the received story. This is a part of what is better understood as folk religion. Okay, the local people always wanted a Baal of their own. So up on that hill, they would build an altar and name that Baal Barit or Baal Ashkelon or Baal something or other. And so there were lots and lots of different Baals. And they lived on these little hills with an altar, and those places were called Bamot, high places. When we see the translation, and so they went to the high place. It's not just a high place. It's a Bamot. It's a place where the local Baal is worshipped. And that's not the received or authoritative Baal religion. There's only supposed to be the one. But the people made it up as they went along. Because, seriously, why wouldn't they? That's very much what happens. This happens with other religions as well. It's a danger within Christianity. When we tend to just make it up as we go along. When people get themselves untied from Scripture itself, the religion that they invent is often sort of Christian. And then you see other stuff added in and floating around the edges. Okay, where did that come from? Well, it just, is a part of this other tradition. Oh, okay. Yeah. So they served the Baals by doing the evil thing. And that I'm going to get into that. I'm getting into Othniel here in just a second, but the rest of chapter 2 summarizes this cycle. They forsook the Lord, this verse 13, served the Baal and the Ashtaroth. And the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he gave them into the hands of plunderers who plundered them. Okay, plunderers, not merely foreign conquerors who set up a whole new wonderful government, because they didn't. There were looters out there. There were bad guys who lived around the edges of any kind of a civilized society who looked for opportunities to rob and steal and rape and plunder and do what they did. And there were always somebody available. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies. And whenever they went, the Lord was against them. And then the Lord raised up judges who delivered them from the hands of those who plundered them. Okay, so the judge was somebody who fixed it. The judge was the God-empowered, we would say, spirit-filled deliverer. He was sent to put things right again. And the term mishpat, judge, means to walk into a broken situation and put it all back together again, the way it's supposed to be. And so when I pull an engine out of a Subaru, I've got 4 of them at home, 2 of them actually running fairly well. And when I pull an engine out of the Subaru and I take it apart all over the bench, the objective of the exercise is to put it all back together again and have it work. And that's on a good day. That's how that happens. What I hate is when I put it all back together again and put it back in the car, and the first thing I get is a loud clunk. Oh, I hate, because then I know I've got to judge the thing all over again. So it's kind of hard. So they sin. They're oppressed. They call out. God sends a deliverer. We're not told how many times this happened. During this period of time, I suspect, there were judges who are not mentioned in the book of Judges. Because the period goes on at least 300 years. And that's a long time in anybody's book. Some of the numbers feel a bit arbitrary. But we do know that 300 years is about the right length of this thing. And at that point, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel because the people, after the death of the judge, would turn back and do their previous thing again. So not a nice story. So this idolatry is going to lead to servitude. Let's see, verse 1 of chapter 3. These are the nations which the Lord left to test Israel by them. That is, all who had not experienced any of the wars of Canaan, so the next generation. Only in order that the generations of the sons of Israel might be taught war, those who had not experienced it formerly. And so the generation had to learn how to make war on those who would destroy them. And that included the Canaanite religious system that surrounded Israel at this time. They were supposed to learn it. And then we get a list of those. And so verse 7 of chapter 3. And so the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. Asherah is singular, Ashtaroth is plural. And again, we've got multiple companions for the multiple Baals, folk religion. And then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, so he sold them into the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim. Ooh, it's an awful name. Cushan, the double evil. Rishathaim is what the grammarians call a dual. It's not merely plural, it's specifically two. Cushan is the guy's name, but he's got the nickname that follows him around, the double evil. Out at our house, we've had some dirt work done lately, and the excavator is a fellow named Doug, but his nom de plume is Big Kahuna. He's 76 like me. I don't know how far back Big Kahuna goes, but this is Cushan is also called the double evil. Okay, he's a very bad man, or so he likes to pretend. That was his name. He was sold into the hand of this character, who was the king of Mesopotamia. And the sons of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim for 8 years. All right, so that sounds pretty straightforward. King of Mesopotamia does not mean that he was in charge of the empire that encompasses Syria, Iraq, and Iran. No, it didn't exist. He was the warlord of a clan of bad guys who made their living by looting and plundering. Seriously, in the whole history of the world, there have really only been two kinds of people. There are productive people and the looters and plunderers. And they're kind of, and when we have a civilization that encourages productive people, all kinds of good things happen. But around the outside, there are always the looters and plunderers who are trying to make a quick buck. It's just, that's normal. And it tends to be opportunistic. So Cushan-Rishathaim saw a weakness here in this productive place. And so he decided to move in and see what he could come up with, like piracy. That's a evil thing, and so there he was for 8 years. And when the sons of Israel cried to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the sons of Israel to deliver them, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Okay, so we're right after the death of Joshua. So Joshua and Caleb were buddies. Caleb's younger brother is this character, Othniel. And Othniel went to work, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. In most of the cases where we see the judges' careers described, there's a point where the Spirit of God comes upon him with power of some kind. And this is evidenced by an ability to lead Israel in battle, to get people together to do this great work, that sort of thing. We sometimes call these people charismatic in the sense that they are imbued by the Spirit, empowered by God's Spirit, and can motivate people. They can get in front of a crowd and make things happen. And some people are like that. It isn't always a good thing, but that's great. And if they happen to be actually led by the Lord, this is a good thing. So we've got Othniel. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. And when he went out to war, the Lord gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, so that he prevailed over Cushan-Rishathaim. Hoo-wah. Okay, so this is all good. And then the land had rest 40 years, and Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Okay, so that's the sequence. The report of the years of oppression is usually accurate to the ones digit, so 8 years, or some other similar figure. And most scholars would say, well, that's probably meant to be taken quite precisely. The length of the peacefulness is often accurate to the tens digit, so 40 years or 80 years or something like that. And that part of that is because it's harder to tell. And so it's an approximation. It's a mistake to add up the years of the oppression and the years of the peace afterwards, and put all of those together for all 12 judges. It's too long. And as we're going to see moving through this, each of the judges had his own local thing. There's no reason that there wouldn't be 2, 3, 5 judges operating at the same time. We don't know that for sure, but that does make sense of all the numbers. Okay, so there it is, and then in verse 12 of chapter 3, and now the sins of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. And again, it's worshiping the Baals. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab. Okay, now, Othniel, we're not told where Othniel operated. His oppressor did come from the northeast, so he may have been in the Galilee. Caleb, we know, was in the south, around Hebron, and so we would expect Othniel to be around Hebron, but the Bible doesn't tell us. It just gives us this outline. This particular judge is, or the oppressor is Eglon, king of Moab. What am I doing with this? Oh yes, this is in Syria, for what it's worth. So we're going to go on to Eglon and his judge Ehud. Ehud is one of my favorite characters in the book of Judges. So, alas, you're going to be stuck with Ehud for a little while here. There are enough rabbit trails to go well around with Ehud. So, there he is. The sons of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. Okay, that's a long time, and that's a problem. Eglon apparently set up shop in the city of Palms, Jericho, and he had a palace there. And I have my ideas about the palace of Eglon, but this is a shot of it's actually from the top of the Tell of Jericho, looking down toward the Jordan River. But you can see it's a city with palm trees. It's got water. One of the few perennial springs in the region. So there was always going to be a city there, and there will always be a city there. It doesn't matter if it's populated by Bedouin, Jebusites. It doesn't matter who's there. There's going to be a city there. And Eglon picked a spot in the Jericho area, built a palace. And we can visualize Eglon's palace with all the trimmings. He would have a big throne room. He was a minor warlord. He was nothing. He was a very likely a Bedouin leader. Comes out of Moab. Moab is that place south of the Arnon Gorge that is desert from the shore of the Dead Sea all the way to Qatar, for heaven's sake. I mean, there's just nothing there. And if you live in Moab or Edom in biblical times, you made your living chasing sheep around the desert. That's how that was done. And so the king of Moab would be a king of a clan of Bedouin peoples who lived in the desert. And they saw Jericho as, wow, uptown, a very nice place. If you've ever been to Jericho, you might have a different opinion, but if you lived out in the desert and all you ever saw was rocks and sheep, Jericho would be like, nice vacation. So, Eglon. When the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them. Okay, so far so good. Ehud, son of Gera the Benjamite, a left-handed man. Now, why does that matter? Okay, now I care that he's a Benjamite, but it makes a special note. He's a lefty. Okay, what is he going to come out as a pitcher for the Yankees? And he's got this special change-up that he can only. It's very interesting. The word Benjamin, the name Benjamin, one of the tribes of Israel, is a word that means the son of my right hand. Okay, so Jacob named his youngest after Joseph Benjamin, the son of my right hand. Okay? You're going to sit at my right hand, the position of power, the position of strength. Okay. Throughout history, the right arm has always symbolized strength, power, authority, a strong right arm of, this sort of thing. And when a king wields the iron rod of his authority and gets ready to bash the heads of the bad guys, he does it with his right arm. When we see pictures of kings and others in antiquity going into battle and getting ready to do their thing, their sword is always in the right hand. Cities were laid out so it's inconvenient for right-handers. if you start studying languages, which is kind of a hobby for me, but if you start studying languages, you discover that left-handers have always had a bad press. You ever notice that? And so in Latin, very totally unrelated to the biblical stuff. In Latin, the right hand is rectos, correct, right on, okay? Right? But the left hand, on the other hand, is sinister, kind of hidden in the shadows, not particularly trustworthy, okay? In French, anybody know French? The right is adroit. We say adroit, the skillful hands of the adroit surgeon as he, digs into your eyeball or whatever he's doing. Okay. And what about the left? A gauche. You know what gauche means? Somebody who's just clumsy, can't get along in society, makes a fool of himself every time he goes out in public. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? And this is true in so many languages that I lost count a long time ago. The lefty has always kind of had a bad press. So in this passage, the author of Judges, who I think is Samuel, makes a point that Ehud is the left-handed son of the right hand. He's a lefty. Oh. Well, how can that possibly make any difference? Well, it does. It's kind of fun to watch. It's just a little fun. Let's see. Okay, what have I got here? Ooh. Okay, Desert Kingdom. Here's a picture of Moab. This is the scenic route because it's got some Bedouin out there. And I could show you some more, but they look like this. So this is the city of palms again. I've showed you that picture on the right before, but this is Hisham's palace. It's always been my daydream that Eglon had his palace in this same general spot. We know there's water here, and we know it's a large flat area. Apart from that, I've got absolutely nothing to support my presupposition. It would be fun if that's the spot that it was. And what? Okay, now let's get back to the lefty. The story makes sense if he's left-handed. Okay. So the Lord raised up a deliverer, Ehud, son of Gera the Benjamite, a left-handed man, and the sons of Israel sent tribute by him. Let's get on to the tribute. Oh, I've got some pictures. Yeah, I do. That's Alexander the Great on the left side of the photo. And you can't see it because it's missing, but his sword or his lance is in his right hand. That's where you'd put it if you were a warrior like this. There's the king getting ready to bash a head out. Okay, enough of that. So Ehud made himself a sword, which had 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it on his right thigh under his cloak. Okay, let's think through all of the details here. The 2-edged sword, 18 inches long, about a cubit, is not a sword at all, it's a dagger. It's a good-sized dagger, big enough to do the job, and small enough to hide. So it's a very good concealed weapon. And Ehud bound it on his right side. Why did he do that? Well, he was obviously intending a Texas cross draw. But more than that, he bound it on his right side because everybody knew that a warrior coming in to assassinate the king will probably have a sword on his left hip. so that he can pull the sword and say, I have come to, that sort of thing. Dudley Do-Right effect. When Ehud went through security, and I know they didn't have metal detectors and all of that, but they had the ancient Near Eastern version of taller than usual crew-cutted characters wearing sunglasses and suits too big for what they really needed. Okay? If you walk into the Vatican someday, into St. Peter's Basilica, and you can't pick out the security, you just haven't been looking. They're so easy to find. The tourists all look like us, just regular people. The priests all look like priests. But the security, about 6'1", Italian-looking fellows with crew cuts, wearing dark glasses inside, and suits that are about 3 sizes big. What have they got under there? If you have to ask, yeah, okay. It's probably a double-edged sword, whatever. So Ehud didn't look like security. He looked like, he looked like one of these guys coming and bringing tribute. Okay, tribute is not the same as taxes. I don't like paying taxes, and I don't like paying tribute. So they're the same in that way. The taxes supposedly go to pay for stuff that the whole society needs. So you pay taxes so that the government can pave the roads and make sure that the water runs. Hoorah, thumbs up for all of that. There are a lot of things that we pay taxes for that really probably we don't desperately need. And I'll let you fill in all of those blanks. But the difference between taxes and tribute is that tribute has absolutely no upside. It's essentially protection money. The enforcers would go out into the community and say, hi folks, we're representatives of our beloved warlord Eglon, and he's asked us to drop by and take up a collection for all of the good things that he does here. And if you don't pay up, we'll, of course, be forced in Christian love to burn your community to the ground. It'd be a terrible thing to happen to such a nice place. And so Eglon, using coercion, extracted as much as he could from everybody who lived in this area. Typical warlords, it's an extractive process, a coercive, extractive process, much like the mafia would do with protection money. No real difference. And it hasn't changed very much. There are always have been productive people who accumulate a certain amount of wealth, and the parasites, the looters, who sit around the outside and find ways to take it. And whether you call those folks, whatever, you can call them sneak thieves or purse snatchers, or you can call them politicians. And some politicians are better than others. This particular group of tribute bearers is coming to the king of Persia. I can tell that because of the way they're dressed and the fact that this panel was found at Persepolis. And so these are Persian. But the tribute process is the same just about everywhere. The local people would send all of their tribute money, the protection payments, by a representative who would carry that tribute to the king. So Eglon was chosen by the people of his village to send the tribute up to Eglon. Okay, so far, so simple. And he arrived in the usual way and acted like a tribute bearer. Okay? So Ehud made a sword, and he presented tribute to Eglon, the king of Moab. And then a detail is added that is completely unnecessary, unless it's a foreshadowing of something coming next. Now, Eglon was a very fat man. Well, that's a nasty thing to say about anybody. I mean, that's not nice. I can imagine Donald Trump saying something like that about somebody he didn't like, but you just don't say that. You kind of don't notice. And, he was a very fat man. Okay. Why did they say that? Well, stick with it. And it came about when he had finished presenting the tribute that he sent away the people who had carried the tribute, several assistants carrying boxes full of loot. And he says, "Wait for me outside, gentlemen. I'll be done in just a second." But he himself turned back from the idols which were at Gilgal. A very interesting phrase, and I'm not going to unpack it for you. It is my guess that the stones that were taken from the river during the invasion of Joshua were by this time being used as idols at Gilgal. Gilgal, I think, is very close to Hisham's palace and Eglon's palace. That's all hearsay. Yeah, if you claim that I'm teaching heresy because I mentioned that, I'll deny it. I didn't say that, but I really do think that this is very likely. And so everybody left, and he came into him. He said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." Ah, well, who doesn't like secret messages? A secret message? For me? Who could it be from? Oh, this is very interesting. How intriguing. And so, here he is. And he said to everybody else, "Keep silence," which we think is probably a Moabite idiom for let's get all the security and all of the table waitresses, and let's get everybody out of the room. Just us. And all who attended left him, and Ehud came to him while he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. The local knowledge is just amazing here. This is typical. You'd build a house out of stone and plaster, and then the roof would be flat. And on the roof, you put up poles and canopy of some kind, and produce a shady spot on the roof where the wind could blow. That's still done in the Middle East today. Awful lot of roofs in the old parts of most of these cities where you can still go up on the roof in the heat of the day and experience some breeze. And so there he was, and Ehud says, "I have a message from God for you." And he rose from his seat, and Ehud stretched out his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And so it's this motion. Okay? Eglon didn't have time to recognize what was going on, let alone use countermeasures. His security was in the other room. The door was locked. He was expecting a message from God, and I'd say he got one. He didn't have a lot of time to think it through, but this is amazing. And so here we have you'll notice when I tell this story, most crowds laugh a little bit of guilty laughter, because it's a funny story. He's a lefty, for heaven's sakes. In the Old Testament, left-handers were allowed to use slings and throw rocks. You wouldn't put a left-handed man in the line of battle with a sword. Just imagine the thing. Everybody's shoulder to shoulder with their swords. Draw, saw, okay? And you're up there with your sword and you're getting ready, and you've got your shield in your left hand, and you're getting ready to fight. And here's this guy, he's got his shield in his right hand, and he's got his sword in his left hand, and he swipes around and cuts your arm off. It wouldn't work. Trust me on this one, they just can't do it. So the lefties were sent out to learn how to throw rocks. And if we holler, slingers, sling your rock, you do it. So it's this funny thing, and you've got this lefty dressed up to give tribute, and he pulls his sword, his little short sword, his dinky little sword, and he makes the move and takes out the king. And everybody laughs. I truly believe that Samuel wrote this to get that little burst of guilty humor. This is what God does to those who hate him and who desecrate his people. Behold the judgment of God and rejoice in it. Kind of cute. Where am I going from here? We're not going to do Shamgar this morning. That means you can get you out of here on time. So Ehud stretched out his left hand, thrust it into his belly, and the handle also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade. For he did not draw the sword out of his belly, and the refuse came out. Oh, now why the detail? Because it rubs it in. He gives us way more detail than we really need in order to emphasize the horror of what Ehud actually did. And yet at the same time, when we read through that and we see this layer upon layer upon layer, Samuel is building a picture of the disgusting thing that happens to those who hate the living God. Oh, now all of a sudden it's awfully serious. Yeah, and our minds are flipping between the, oh, this is kind of funny, to, oh my goodness, this is serious. Both sides of it are coming. And Ehud went out into the vestibule and shut the doors of the roof chamber and locked them. How did he lock the doors? You put a padlock on there and walk right? No. Ancient Near Eastern locks were complex affairs. They seem to have been designed on a case-by-case basis. We find almost no similarities. Most ancient doors had some kind of if they had a locking mechanism at all, most didn't. Had something with ropes and pulleys and objects that could be grabbed and pulled, or there's a variety of methods. We don't know what Eglon used, but it was probably state-of-the-art, really good stuff for, 1300 BC or so. It was probably pretty good stuff. And the door was locked. And Ehud went out, he locked it, and when he had gone out, the servants, Eglon's servants, came and looked, and behold, the doors of the roof chamber were locked. And they said to themselves, well, he's probably using the little king's room out in back, the cool room out behind. He's relieving himself. He'll just be a minute. And they waited until it became, the Hebrew suggests, embarrassed. Like, he's been a long time at this. How long does it take, after all? But behold, he didn't open the door, and therefore they took the key and opened them. And behold, their master had fallen to the floor, dead. Yeah. The Bible often unnecessarily adds to a sequence like this, and he died. Oh yes, that will do it. And Ehud escaped while they were delaying, and he passed by the idols and escaped to Syria. And it came about when he had arrived that he blew the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. And the sons of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was in front of them, and he said, "Pursue them, the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hands." So they went down after him, seized the fords of the Jordan opposite Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross. They struck down at that time about 10,000 Moabites, all robust and valiant men, and no one escaped. Okay. The Old Testament big numbers, even numbers, are almost always a problem. I'm not going to go through that particular issue again. I would love to be able to take this at face value, but it doesn't work very well. 10 elephs of Moabites, and we can only guess at how many that was, but a lot of them. And many died. When the Bible says, and such a large number were slain, the word usually means they were either killed, injured, or ran away. They were driven off, they were defeated. Usually that's what we're to infer. Otherwise, you end up with these gigantic body counts. That strains my credibility a little. The population in those days was not nearly what it is today. And we just kind of have to make guesses sometimes. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land was undisturbed for 80 years. Okay, so for a long time, that particular area, the area around Jericho and up into Ephraim, had no trouble. And then they did it again. Now, next year, could be. Next week when we come back, we're going to do at least one. We'll probably get into two. We'll do Shamgar for sure, and then we'll get started on Deborah and Barak. Shamgar is one of the most interesting characters in the Old Testament. If you've read this verse, you've probably said something to the effect of, "Who the devil is Shamgar? Where did he come from? And how did he slay 600 Philistines? What did he do? Have a thing that allowed them to take numbers? Now slaying number 46. How did you do that?" We'll talk about that next week. God bless. Have a good week. Enjoy church.